Coming on the air with this deep freeze affecting 1 in 4 of us. Icy highways turning dangerous. And yes, it is winter. It is cold. It's snowing in Florida cold. Our team's out in it with a look at where it's the worst and when it'll warm up. Also new tonight, President Trump telling our team he has not ruled out taking Greenland by force if he has to. What else he's saying in a new text to Norway about why losing the Nobel Peace Prize means he no longer has to think purely of peace. Plus, how one British newspaper made Prince Harry, in his words, paranoid beyond belief. Our team is outside court on those new accusations. Then why the hometown team in tonight's national championship game may hear some boo birds in the stadium. We're live in Miami for the Hoosiers, the Hurricanes, and the booming business of college football. And the latest battle brewing in the beer wars as companies try to fight for a shrinking slice of drinkers. Why one brand's bringing back an iconic figure tonight that we find interesting, the most interesting in the world. It's coming up later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight I'm cold, you're probably cold. 40 million of us from the Northeast to the Midwest and down to Florida are cold, and this Arctic blast is getting dangerous. Look at this. We know several people have been hurt after this huge pileup. Look at this, about 100 cars in Michigan. You've got cleanup crews even now trying to get this thing all cleared up. And it's just a mess with all those semi-trucks back to back to back. Some of them are blocking the whole highway. You see this one trailer, it's like, looks to be basically split in half entirely there. A lot of this is happening because drivers couldn't see the roads. Why? Because of this. Can you see? I mean, it's a whiteout, basically. It's almost impossible to have any visibility. And even down in Florida, there's snow trickling down. There it is, coming down on the state line sign there at the Panhandle. And even with temperatures 10 to 25 degrees below average in some spots right now, I want to be real. It is winter. It is cold. This is not record-breaking cold. It's colder than normal, but it's not bonkers, at least not yet. That comes in a few days, and that is what has experts so concerned about what we're feeling now. We're going to get into that with Bill Cairns in a second, but first I want to bring in Aaron McLaughlin in New York City, where they are getting ready for it. Aaron, give us a sense of what people should be expecting.
Well, people here in New York City, Hallie, can expect temperatures to plunge yet again. A very chilly 5-degree wind chill in the forecast for tomorrow. Speaking to emergency officials here in the city, they said that two things at this point concern them most. The idea that the power could potentially go out in one of these major skyscrapers where people live, and then they'd have to rehouse all of those people. So that's nightmare scenario number one for city officials. Nightmare scenario number two, potential fire. Lots of emergency officials, actually, that I've been talking to across the Northeast say they are very concerned specifically about space heaters, warning folks that if you're using a space heater to stay warm, do not use an extension cord. Make sure you plug it directly into the wall and make sure that you have a perimeter around said space heater, a concern shared with emergency officials I was speaking to over in Wisconsin. And spare a thought, really, for anyone in the Midwest right now. They're in Wisconsin. They're bracing for wind chills of minus 40 with 40-mile-per-hour winds. I was speaking to Milwaukee's chief health policy official, and he was telling me that in the hospitals they've seen an uptick in the number of patients being admitted to the hospital with cold-related injuries. He said he's extremely concerned about folks spending too much time outside, specifically more than 10 minutes, he said, in those conditions can lead to hypothermia. It has officials extremely concerned.
Aaron McLaughlin live for us in New York. Obviously, a lot of concern out there. Aaron, thank you. And Bill, that is only going to increase as the week goes along, because right now, while it is frigid, it is in some ways, to mix metaphors, only the calm before the storm.
Yeah, we're going to get 2 Arctic outbreaks and then possibly the biggest winter storm we've had in years moving across the southern half of the country in areas that don't get a lot of snow and ice, maybe even paralyzing in some areas as we head to this upcoming weekend. So that's going to have a lot of people changing their plans. We'll fine-tune it as the week goes on. So right now, this is the primer. The cold air is here. It's been brutal all day long. International Falls, Minneapolis, Chicago, Marquette, negative wind chill values. And this is what's going to be arriving tonight into tomorrow in areas of the Northeast. We do have, cold advisories. The higher levels, cold warnings. That's when you get you warn people about being outside with exposed skin. This is more to the annoying, and if your car breaks down or something, then it could be problematic. This is tomorrow, by the way. D.C., lowest wind chill 9, New York around 4, northern New England around 0, still in the negative numbers up and through the Great Lakes. As far as the southern storm goes, this doesn't begin until Friday, so we have a couple days to watch this. On this map, the blue shows you the snow, the pink will be the ice. So we're talking areas of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, maybe Atlanta, all in possible icy conditions, and then a heavy batch of snow. Right now I'm watching you closely: Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville, Lexington, Charlotte to Raleigh, Richmond, D.C., possibly Baltimore. The northern edge of it is kind of like New York City and Boston. As of now, the favorite area for the heaviest stuff would be to the south. So here's kind of that whole map combined for you for where we think the best chance of snow is, the best chance of ice, and this will have significant impacts and travel problems right into the weekend. So the best chance for that heavy snow, there you are, Hallie, D.C. to Raleigh, Nashville to Little Rock to Oklahoma City. But this isn't until Saturday for the most part.
Okay.
We have numerous days to see if this shifts north or south, but these southern areas, this could be ugly. Biggest snowstorm in maybe a couple of years for many locations.
Well, and you know how bad ice can get when ice starts to go through it, even a little bit of it, especially for folks who aren't used to it, don't have the equipment there so easily. If there is at least any silver lining, it's the Northern Lights silver lining, right? Because we could maybe even here in the Mid-Atlantic, even across the Midwest, some people could see it that don't typically get to see it.
Yeah, this could be the story of the night. I mean, right now in Europe, the northern lights are on fire. I mean, you can go to any webcams on any ski resorts or glaciers, and it just looks incredible out there. And they're being reported in England, too. So this is at the mid-latitudes. This is in areas of Germany, I'm seeing it, in Austria. And the reason that's important, this isn't just Norway and Finland and Iceland. This is further to the south. So as soon as our sun is setting now and we get dark enough, if you have clear skies from the Carolinas through Missouri, Colorado, northwards, you may have an incredible show. This could actually be close to what we saw about a year and a half ago. This is all from a huge solar storm that started yesterday when the sun exploded, had a big flare. It arrived at 2 o'clock this afternoon. This could be a really incredible show. If it's on your bucket list, Hallie, tonight is the night.
All right, Bill Cairns, good advice. Thank you so much, as always. Also tonight, the whole Greenland thing is escalating in this kind of dramatic way. Because, President Trump wants Greenland. He wants to own it, or he wants to take it. And in a new phone interview with NBC News, he's not ruling out taking Greenland by force, i.e., using the military. But he also might buy it. He's been saying he's concerned about Arctic security. He thinks Greenland's important, so the U.S. needs it for that reason. You've got Russia moving stuff around up there, China, etc. Okay, so it's security. But also maybe it has to do with the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what the president's texting the Norwegians now, saying since they didn't give him the Nobel, he doesn't have to think purely of peace, but for what is, quote, good and proper for America. The implication being that what's good and proper is, as the president puts it, the U.S. having complete and total control of Greenland. Now, the Europeans are at a level 10 on this. They're going to maybe unload a trade bazooka, their words, after the president said he'd throw tariffs on some of their countries if they didn't go along with this. And even though he wants Greenland, Greenland doesn't want him. That's been clear from some of the protests over the last couple of days. And the Greenlandic MAGA message, make America go away. Our Ryan Nobles over in Denmark speaking to some folks there.
We feel frightened, and especially the people living in Greenland, both adults but also youngsters and kids.
The children are worried, the adults are not sleeping.
Greenland is not for sale, so what is on the table from the U.S. side right now is not interesting for us, and you can't buy a country.
Brian Chung is covering all things tariff-related, but I want to start with Garrett Haake at the White House. Okay, Garrett, so when it comes to Arctic security, put a little pin in that. We'll come back to it. But when it comes to Arctic security, Denmark, the Europeans have said they will work with President Trump to give him what he wants on that. So why would the president spend the estimated $700 billion it would cost to buy Greenland or the military muscle? Why would he spend that to get something that the U.S. could have for free?
Yeah, it's a weird case of where the president seeming to not want to take yes for an answer, Hallie. The Danes and the Greenlandic people have basically said we can have what we need in terms of establishing security, but the country stays theirs. I think there are a couple things at play here. It is possible that what we're seeing is kind of a page out of Art of the Deal, an attempt to drive down a price that the Danes say doesn't exist, that our research says could go as high as $700 million, to get it to something a little bit lower, something that we could potentially actually spend. It's not like the United States has $700 billion lying around in the couch cushions for a purchase like this. I think there's also a certain element of legacy building that we sometimes see in a president's second term. You've seen that with the president and his travel schedule so far. You've seen it in the manner in which he approaches the Western Hemisphere as kind of the United States' backyard that needs to be protected and controlled by the United States at all costs. And his desire to do, as he has said publicly, to protect it better by owning it than you would by leasing it. This seems to be very much stuck in his mind as the only way to guarantee American security in Greenland is to make it part of America. All of that is speculative at this point. We can go by what the White House has said, which, including today, is that it's not about the Nobel Peace Prize. Here's what Scott Bessent had to say in Davos when he was asked about that.
I don't know anything about the president's letter to Norway, and I think it's a complete canard that the president will be doing this because of the Nobel Prize. The president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset for the United States. We are not going to outsource our hemispheric security to anyone else.
Hallie, that's the most consistent framework I can put around it, the idea of hemispheric security, because in every other way, the U.S.'s big security strength globally are our alliances. Apparently not the case in the Western Hemisphere.
Okay, so pull on the Arctic security thread. How insecure is the Arctic?
It's a fascinating question because it's been changing for years. Hallie, I did a story 20 years ago almost about the changing nature of the Arctic threat because of climate change and the fact that the sea ice that used to be there.
Oh, my God.
It's true.
Please,
it's true.
Producers are on that, bud. You're going to regret ever mentioning it.
I wasn't in it. Yeah, that's fine. As a young producer with correspondent Jim Maceda, we did a series of stories about changing global threats because of climate change. And one of the tops is at the top of the world, where melting ice has changed the navigability of the entire kind of northern end of the world. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of stuff under that ice that people want. Critical minerals, oil and gas.
Yeah.
It's a major new theater, essentially, globally. The U.S. has access to it through Alaska. Russia has significant access to it. The Chinese want to be a player. It is a dynamic situation, and one that 20 years from now could be even more dynamic. So the idea that the U.S. and partner countries need to take a bigger stake in Arctic security isn't totally outlandish. But the way that the U.S. has addressed that for decades now has been through those partners. The Canadians, the Norwegians, the Danes. And so what we're seeing here is a major shift in the manner in which we're addressing a problem that is changing, ironically, through climate change, something that this administration has long downplayed.
And oh, by the way, the president is also now, according to NBC News reporting, putting his eyes on Canada when it comes to all things Arctic.
That's right. Under the same general theory here, that if you want to defend the Arctic, it should be the U.S. defending it, despite the fact that the Canadians have one of our deepest security partnerships and have far more Arctic exposure than does the U.S.
Garrett Haake, live for us there on the White House North Lawn. Garrett, thank you. Let me bring in Brian Chung now. Brian, to the point that Garrett and I were just talking about, you've got the Europeans, you've got the Danes saying, hey, we're gonna do the things you want. Let's talk about this. We can get to a place where you have the security, you know, Mr. President, that you want, without you having to take or own or buy Greenland, which, as you heard from some of those Danish officials, is not for sale. Now the president threatens tariffs on some of these European countries, says those are going to go into place and escalate if he doesn't get Greenland. And Europe's firing back with this threat of a trade bazooka. That sounds scary, is it?
Yeah, well, it's actually counter tariffs that were already discussed at the end of last year. So bazooka, you can call it whatever you want. It's a playbook that we've seen already, because this is far from the first time we've heard the president threatening tariffs on the European Union and then the European Union responding with threats of tariffs of their own. Again, what we're talking about here is a pretty substantial trade relationship. The European Union as a bloc accounts for the largest amount of U.S. imports into this country by volume, eclipsing even China, over $600 billion as of the last count in the year 2024. A lot of those products are things like, of course, wine and cheese. But more importantly, there are major types of imports that we bring in here from the European Union, like pharmaceutical products, like cars, like trucks. So for those reasons, all of those things could get a lot more expensive if these tariffs do come to pass. Again, the president threatening 10% on February 1st. That would ratchet up to 25% once we get to June. But then on the other side of things, you have the European Union threatening, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to tariff American goods coming coming into our countries as well. What would that be? That would be things like American whiskey, Boeing planes, if that sounds familiar. These are the exact same things that the European Union had threatened to tariff the last time there was this discussion in the spring of last year. The question is, obviously, as to Garrett's point, this is part of the art of the deal. Is this part of the negotiating tactic, or is this the actual ends by which the story finishes? That is something that we'll have to see as this Greenland story continues to play out, Hallie.
Brian Chung, geopolitics, your wallet, your budget here at home, it affects it all. Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate it. President Trump's also making some news today by inviting onto his new board of peace for the next phase of the Gaza deal, the Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Watch.
Yes, indeed. President Putin also received an invitation through diplomatic channels to join this peace council. We are currently studying all the details of this proposal, including hoping to contact the American side to clarify all the nuances.
And there are plenty of nuances on this one, right? You've got this committee that's a key part of the American plan to rebuild Gaza. The president has invited a whole bunch of world leaders to join, the Canadian prime minister, the Argentinian president. But if you want to be on the board permanently, there's a catch. You've got to pay $1 billion. We've reached out to both the White House and the Israeli government on the Putin piece of it all, but we haven't heard back. I want to get to Matt Bradley now. And Matt, this has been a board of peace that has not been without a spotlight and some real scrutiny, too, on what it means for Gaza.
That's right, what it means for Gaza and what it means for the world, because a lot of commentators have been looking at this and saying that this is a really unsubtle attempt by the Trump administration to turn this board of peace into something that would sideline or replace even the United Nations. And, you know, President Trump, of course, has been so critical of the United Nations and so many of the institutions that govern kind of supranationally throughout the world. And this seems like one of those attempts to kind of try to make another body that would fill that role. He has said, in this charter that has been coming out over the weekend of this new Board of Peace, it doesn't even mention the word Gaza. And it seems to be put in place in order to resolve multiple conflicts throughout the world, as President Trump has claimed that he's been doing ever since he took office nearly a year ago. So this seems like it has much more broad ambitions. As you mentioned, it has kind of a pay-to-play element, $1 billion cost to have a permanent seat on this board. So presumably permanent, meaning more than 3 years, this in the charter of that document. That would mean that that country would be on the board, of peace, and would be able to presumably be part of this sort of peacekeeping or diplomatic mission that the board will be playing in conflicts well beyond the Gaza Strip. This whole framework has been really heavily criticized by Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And he rarely would issue kind of a public a tap against President Trump, and that's exactly what he did, saying that he hadn't been consulted. His big objection was that one of the committees underneath this Board of Peace would include Turkey and Qatar, countries that the Israeli leadership here, especially on the right wing, have regularly said are either supportive or sympathetic to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So the people that I've been talking to about this plan that we've been hearing over the past couple of days, they're not optimistic that it's going to come together, mostly because nobody is going to want to join.
So can I ask you, too, because there's another interesting dynamic at play here. By the president extending this, I don't know, olive branch, you could call it, to Vladimir Putin to come and join this Board of Peace, let's remind folks that Putin is involved, obviously led the invasion of Ukraine, and there is a stalled negotiation, shaky negotiations on that front. What message does that send to that region then?
That's right. And, you know, one of the things about that is that, of course, this is just one of so many messages that President Trump has sent, not just to Ukraine, but to Ukraine's European allies, who are crucial stakeholders in all of the talks that are going on to resolve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It just goes to show it's a wink, once again, at President Putin, showing that as far as the White House is concerned and Trump is concerned, he is completely rehabilitated despite invading Ukraine nearly 4 years ago. So, you know, this is not the way that you treat a pariah state, as the Biden administration and European leaders have treated Vladimir Putin, inviting him to sit on a board of peace, even as he executes a war that has been widely condemned by governments throughout the world.
Matt Bradley, live for us overseas tonight. Matt, thank you. Let's take over to Spain now, where tonight people there are warning more people may have been killed in that horrific high-speed train crash than they've initially reported here. That's because there's a lot of questions about how exactly this happened. This is the scene. It's tough to look at. Just minutes after the crash overnight, people running from one of the train cars that ended up on its side there. 40 people were killed at least. Again, that number could go up. Dozens of others have been hurt in one of the worst train crashes Spain has seen in more than a decade. Officials are out there now. They're just starting to try to clean up some of this. Here's what we know about the accident. Apparently, this tail end of one of the trains went off the rails and slammed right into another train going towards a different city. Investigators are obviously trying to figure out how this happened so it doesn't happen again. Raf Sanchez joins us now, and there's a lot of questions around this, Raf, because, this was if I understand correctly, it was a straightaway. This is high-speed rail that's operated for a while in Spain. There was nothing that felt or seemed unusual before the crash happened, right?
Yeah, Hallie, the Spanish transport minister is saying it is extremely strange that this accident happened where it did. As you said, this was a straight part of the track. First question you normally ask in a train accident like this is, was the train going quickly around a curve? That is not what happened here. The track had been renovated pretty recently. The train itself was pretty new. It was only 4 years old. And so a lot of questions right now about what exactly went wrong here that led to just this total catastrophe at 7:45 p.m. last night. The first train going from Malaga to the Spanish capital, Madrid. People at the end of the weekend, a lot of them going home. Train was full, some 300 people on board, when all of a sudden it jumped the rails and you had this collision. I want to play you just a little bit of sound from a woman who survived but saw some truly horrific things. Take a listen.
Some people were fine and others were really bad. And we had them in front of us, and you could see them dying, and you could do nothing. People who were all right broke the windows and pulled me out because I was covered in blood.
Now, you have wounded people in emergency rooms all across the Cordoba region, some 20 people still in serious condition. That includes a number of children. And as you said, Hallie, there are concerns from Spanish authorities that this death toll, currently at 40, could rise higher. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez reporting for us tonight on that terrible crash. Raf, thank you very much. Coming up tonight, some new warnings, too, in Australia after the third shark attack there in less than 24 hours. What experts say might have created the perfect storm. Plus, is your new favorite singer actually AI? We'll explain. Coming up, what's hitting a 70-something-year low in China? But first, have you heard about this new artist? She's been climbing the charts right now. Listen to this. Sienna Rose. This may be dropping into your algorithm, into your Spotify, whatever already. She calls herself a neo-soul singer. She only recently started putting out music, like within the last year, but she already has 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And a couple of her latest songs are up there in the global top 50, the viral 50 chart. She's getting a ton of attention, but then there are these questions because people are like, well, wait a second, where is she touring? Where is she performing? Nobody appears to have ever seen her in real life. She doesn't have any verified social media profiles. She doesn't have an official YouTube page. The streaming platform Deezer is now labeling most of her stuff AI. But on TikTok, one account claiming to be her says that's not the case.
Well, I feel real.
NBC News has reached out to those affiliated with the artist, but we haven't yet heard back. Chloe Malas is following this story for us, and this is one that's like kind of mysterious here. Like she hit it, right? I mean, she had a couple of the songs there on the top 50 charts. I personally know somebody who's like sending her songs to their friends, being like, hey, she's, love this music. But the question is like, is this even a real artist? Does that matter? And how do people feel about it?
Okay, so there's so much to unpack here, and your friend Hallie is not the only one. Selena Gomez, the queen herself, posted a since-deleted Instagram post of herself getting ready. I believe it was a story to one of Sienna Rose's songs. And now that some people are wondering, how is this artist putting out so much music with no social media presence? How is this happening for her and not other artists? Now that people think it might be AI, they're not happy about it. Take a listen.
Just found out that my favorite artist is an AI.
Nothing is real. It's all a lie.
I thought the songs were really good, but I'm more upset by the fact that I could not detect it.
All right, so Deezer, like you said, which is a music streaming platform, Hallie, they put out the findings of a poll that they did in the fall. They spoke to 9,000 participants across 8 countries, including the United States, Britain, and France. What did they find? 97% of listeners, they can't tell the difference between AI and human-composed songs. I gotta admit, I went on Spotify today. I was listening to some of Sienna's hits. I can't tell the difference either. I would be totally duped too, Hallie.
This is it feels just like such an of the moment, conflict or controversy when it comes to tech, when it comes to music, when it comes to the broader conversation around artists and AI, entertainment companies and AI. And you look at Spotify, last year, 80 musicians in Chicago wrote an open letter that said, we're pulling our music off of Spotify because of how you handle AI, right? So step back and give us the macro look at this about the way, and you've done so much reporting on this, Chloe, the way that everybody from Hollywood to musicians and beyond are grappling with this new AI landscape that we're all in.
First of all, the technology, Hallie, is moving at the speed of light, maybe even faster. And so all of these streaming platforms, they're having to play catch up, including Spotify, which came out and said, look, AI is not allowed on our platform, but what you need to do is you need to disclose it. And that they also said that they are going to improve their enforcement of impersonation violations. And that's a big thing. As long as you are saying that you used AI or you are a company creating an AI artist or band, that makes it better. And I just want to also pull up a graphic of the rise in the popularity of AI artists. You have Child Pets galore. You have Juno Sky, Breaking Rust. You and I might not know this music, Hallie, but actually it's thanks to TikTok. It's thanks to YouTube why these AI artists are gaining millions of monthly listeners and even topping the charts. And I'm sure my kids know a lot of these songs better than you and I. And again, it's all thanks to how AI, it's having such a boom right now. And it's not just music, it's TV, movies as well. Everybody's grappling with it. Yep.
Bottom line, though, the mystery persists over Sienna Rose, right? Can't definitively say either way, apparently.
Who is Sienna Rose? We still don't know.
Okay.
Maybe 2026 will be the year, Hallie, that we'll find out.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, have you heard about this? Valentino has died, the incredibly famous Italian fashion designer at 93 years old. He designed for generations of royals, first ladies, and movie stars, even introduced a new color, Valentino red, to the fashion world. The foundation of Valentino Garavani says he was at home in Rome, surrounded by loved ones. He's being remembered by so many tonight. Number 2, Australian officials say a 12-year-old boy is now in the fight of his life after a shark bit him in Sydney in what was the 3rd shark attack in just about 24 hours. Somebody else is also in critical condition after being bit while surfing. Police say there's been a lot of rain recently, so the city's harbor has filled with more fresh water than usual, and that apparently is something that attracts bull sharks. Number 3, police say they're looking for a suspected attacker after an Indiana judge and his wife were shot at their home. Both of them are in stable condition, but the Chief Justice there is now warning other state judges to stay vigilant. We're going to keep an eye on this story. Number 4, China's population is dropping now, falling for a 4th straight year, with the country's birth rate now at its lowest level in decades, according to the official data. And the government there has been doing stuff to try to reverse the trend. They're offering child care subsidies. They're saying, we'll tax contraceptive drugs, we'll tax condoms, etc., in order to try to reverse that trend. Number 5, have you heard about this? The Buffalo Bills firing their head coach today, Sean McDermott, after 9 seasons with the team. Listen, the Bills had some success, right? Regular season, some playoff success. They never made the Super Bowl. The Bills owner praised McDermott, but said a new leadership structure is needed to take the team to the next level. When we come back, some new video showing a pretty bold smash and grab in Jersey. Where do you see it and how much one jewelry owner says he thinks he lost? Plus, where the measles outbreak in South Carolina is now spreading. Next. So a new case of measles has now been confirmed on campus at Clemson in South Carolina. And South Carolina has been the epicenter of this most recent outbreak here. Just one part of it. It's now got something like 550 cases in that state. It is the worst in the country right now. Nationally, the CDC is reporting more than 170 new measles cases in just the first few weeks of 2026. This is one of those things that you're watching. Liz Kreutz is watching it, our reporter who's been all over this measles outbreak. It's on a college campus, Liz, where there's obviously a A lot of people in a small place. Most of them are vaccinated, so that's the good news for Clemson. But it does speak to this moment in South Carolina and how seriously officials are taking this.
Yeah, Hallie, I mean, like you said, this is the largest outbreak right now in the country. Not only are there about 500 cases reported there, they've doubled in the past week, those numbers, and there's about 500 people in quarantine, and officials believe that those numbers are actually an undercount. As far as Clemson, they have not actually given the details on who this person is that's tested positive for measles, but they did put out this statement saying that that person is now in quarantine. They've been isolated, and the university is now doing contact tracing to try to figure out where that person was. And as you said, the good news is 98% of that campus has immunization for measles.
We've been reporting on how a lot of these cases are among unvaccinated people, but not everybody can get vaccinated, and those are among the most vulnerable. And I know you talk with somebody who's dealing with just this.
Yeah, I spoke with a mother whose 6-year-old son, Mason, they're in South Carolina. He is not able to get the vaccine because of an autoimmune disorder. The rest of his family has it. He doesn't. He is currently in the middle of his second quarantine because now twice he has been exposed at school. These quarantines last 21 days. He's missing a lot of school because of it. Take a listen to what the mother had to say.
I'm absolutely terrified that he will get the measles because I do not know what it will do to him. If a virus like the flu makes him that sick, the fact that there's people in the community that just on principle won't vaccinate their children because they just feel like the government can't tell them what to do, it makes me really angry.
Now, the epicenter, Hallie, is Spartanburg County, which is in the northwest part of the state. And experts were telling us some of the schools there have immunization rates at just 30 to 35%. And most of the cases right now in South Carolina are among children and teenagers.
Oh, it's just scary to think about. Liz Croix, thanks for being on top of it. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, Prince Harry back in court today for what sounds like his last showdown against the UK tabloids. What he says made him paranoid beyond belief. Next. Prince Harry back in a London court today, saying that the British tabloids made him paranoid beyond belief. His lawyers say the Daily Mail publishers used illegal methods to snoop on Harry and then used that stuff to create sensational headlines. Now, the Daily Mail denies it. Prince Harry is expected to take the stand later on this week. Our Danielle Hamamjian has more outside that court in London.
Prince Harry has already successfully sued other publishers. Now he's back in the UK inside that building for one more fight against the British tabloids. And a spokesperson for the prince tells us he feels confident and ready. The fifth in line to the throne isn't fighting this one on his own. Among the other celebrity claimants, actress Elizabeth Hurley and singer Elton John and his husband David Furnish. They're taking on the publisher of the Daily Mail, Associated Newspapers. Among the accusations that A&L hacked phones, hired private investigators to secretly place listening devices inside people's cars and homes, and impersonated individuals to obtain medical information, all over a period dating back up to 30 years. The publisher denies the allegations, describing them as preposterous smears. Now, back in 2023, Prince Harry became the first senior British royal in more than a century to give evidence in court. Now he'll be back in the witness box this coming Thursday. The trial is expected to last 9 weeks.
Thanks to Danielle Hamamjian for that. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our northern bureau, take a look at this. A group of thieves smashing the front window of a jewelry store in New Jersey. Look at that. The owner says he lost his whole inventory. Everything, about $1 million worth of stuff in like a matter of minutes. Police are still looking for these folks. Out of our Southern Bureau, new pictures out of Florida showing the Coast Guard rescuing a couple of boaters after their boat capsized. You can see them out there just floating in the ocean. Fortunately, they're doing okay now. Officials say it is a reminder to bring emergency equipment, life jackets, radios, whenever you're out on the water. And out of our Washington Bureau here, Maryland could be getting its own sphere. You know, the one in Las Vegas might be coming to the National Harbor. You see the rendering. Officials say it would be a smaller version, right? So not quite as big as the one in Vegas, but it could bring in millions of dollars and thousands of jobs to that area. Still to come, we are just hours away from the biggest game in college football and a game that has a lot of firsts. Our Jesse Kirsch is there. Jesse?
Hey, Hallie. Hallie, I got to tell you, if they're handing out bald caps and aviators in Miami, that can mean only one thing. Mr. 305 himself performing outside of the college football playoffs national championship. We're previewing the big game. Woo, Dolly! Coming up after this.
So in just a few hours tonight, I probably don't have to tell you, the college football championship is going to kick off, and it's kind of a one of one in the history of college football. Why? Well, you have Indiana, who until a couple years ago had lost more games than any college football team ever, trying to cap an undefeated season where they've just rolled over basically everyone. They're playing Miami in Miami's home stadium, the first time that has happened since the college football playoff started. Do you think there's a few tailgaters out there? Guys, there's a few tailgaters out there, okay? And the interest through the roof. The cheapest tickets, $3 or $4 grand. Okay, it's a lot of money. And if you're not coughing up that kind of cash, you can watch it on ESPN, which has 10 different telecasts of the game. Why? Because football is big business. Look at our favorite graphic, the top 100 most watched TV broadcasts of 2025. Why are people watching live TV? Why are they watching? Because of football. And if it's not the NFL, it is college football. You can see it there, some of those graphics. It turns out it's more college football on this list, right, making the top 100 this past year than any other year that we've been looking at this. Jesse Kirsch has the assignment of the evening, joining us now from the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where this is all going to go down. You are still wearing the Pitbull sunglasses, I see, although not the bald cap. I guess you can be forgiven. Duh. Everybody's excited. It's big business. It's a big scene.
Yeah, and Hallie, when you talk about the tailgaters, Mr. 305 himself is among them. He was just chugging something on the stage a moment ago. I'm not quite sure what. Let's just take you in to give you a sense of the scene. Now, reminder, we are in the Miami area right now, so this is where you would think the Hurricanes unofficially have a home game. But I got to tell you, there's quite a bit of Indiana Crimson out here right now. You talk about what they're trying to do, cap off an undefeated season. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes trying to win a championship for the first time in over 20 years. And you can just see this is just a sliver of the crowd outside right now before the kickoff, Hallie.
And it's so interesting when you look at both Miami and Indiana with those South Florida ties. Some Hoosiers players graduated from one of the local high schools there. And I think it's an interesting mix, right? To your point, typically it would be a super definitive kind of home game, you would think, for Miami. Not the case.
No, there is we're not home teaming for anybody right now, but definitely there are people out here trying to get us to pick a side. And there are some people in the Miami area who cannot pick a side, including at Columbus High School in Miami itself. That is where Fernando Mendoza, the star quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner for Indiana, went, as did his younger brother and backup quarterback. But there are 3 Miami Hurricanes who went there as well. We caught up with their high school coach late last week. Here's what he told us. And by the way, he can't even pick a side.
Are you leaning one way or the other? I'm really not. It's even my daughter tried to get an answer out of me, and I wouldn't give her one.
So he can't pick a side. There are some students who could pick a side, but there are definitely some students who are rooting for Miami, some rooting for Indiana, and there's a lot of both out here right now. But I got to say, for the visiting Hoosiers, they're represented very well. We'll see who does better on the field tonight. Kickoff in under 2 hours now. A lot of energy here, and as you mentioned, this is a high-price ticket to get in tonight, Hallie.
I know your crew is like, wrap it up, let's go. Is this your last live shot? Do you get to watch from inside?
We got one more. It should wrap before kickoff. You know, look, if we see one play, that's like if you divide by the ticket price to get in. Even just seeing one play would be amazing in this one.
You earned it. You put on that bald cap and you've double earned it. Jesse Kirsch, text us a pic. Appreciate you. Thank you. We are coming on the air with this deep freeze affecting 1 in 4 of us. Icy highways turning dangerous. And yes, it is winter, it is cold, but it's snowing in Florida cold. Our team's out in it with a look at where it's the worst and when it'll warm up. Also new tonight, President Trump telling our team he's not ruling out taking Greenland by force if he has to. What else he's saying in a new text to Norway about why losing the Nobel Peace Prize means he no longer has to think purely of peace. Then the president's picking Putin to join his so-called board of peace in Gaza, why some critics say the whole plan sounds like a cash grab. Plus, the new escalation potentially in Minneapolis, with the Pentagon basically putting 1,500 troops on standby over demonstrations against ICE operations in that state. What it could take for the president to move forward. Plus, the new singer storming the Spotify charts has unreal talent. Some say a little too unreal. How the tea leaves may be pointing to this artist being AI. The mystery around that coming up a little bit later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight I'm cold, you're probably cold. 40 million of us from the Northeast to the Midwest and down to Florida are cold, and this Arctic blast is starting to get dangerous. Look at this. We know several people have been hurt after this huge pileup, about 100 cars, if you can believe it, in Michigan. You've got cleanup crews trying to clean it up, but it's like that's a process. Look at all these semi-trucks. They're back to back to back. Some of them are jackknifed across the road. A lot of it's happening because drivers were looking at roads like this. You can barely see it. It's like near whiteout conditions. It's almost impossible to see through it. Even down in Florida, there's snow. Look at this trickling down on the state line sign right there at the Panhandle. And with temperatures 10 to 25 degrees below average in some spots right now, like in the Northeast. We're getting more and more pictures of this snow starting to pile up. You can see it there in New York, in New Jersey, looks like Massachusetts as well. Now, let's be real. It is winter. It is cold. This is not record-breaking cold. We're not trying to freak you out. It is colder than normal. You're seeing the impact of it, but it is not totally like bonkers just yet. Not yet. That is coming up later this week, and that is when things could really get serious. Let me bring in Bill Cairns on that. But first, we'll start with Aaron McLaughlin in New York, where they are getting ready for all of it because that cold blast is hitting, and it's going to hit even harder, Aaron.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie, and it's hitting starting tomorrow. Wind chill for the New York City expected to be 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Emergency officials tell me they have a plan in place. Two scenarios concern them most. Scenario one being the possibility that one of these big buildings that house a lot of people, well, that building could lose power. They're worried about that. They've got an emergency plan in place, essentially to scramble to rehouse whoever would be in that building to warmer indoor shelter. The other big scenario they're concerned about, the potential for fire in all of this. They're really worried about folks and their space heaters, specifically folks who do not keep a proper perimeter around their space heater, or folks that like to use extension cords for their space heaters, really warning people not to do that. Be careful with those space heaters. It's something that I'm hearing really from emergency officials all up and down the East Coast. But spare a thought for folks in the Midwest. They're facing wind chills in the negative double digits. I was just on the phone with the chief health policy officer for the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. He was in the hospitals over the weekend. He said that there was a marked uptick in the number of people coming to the hospital with injuries associated with the cold. And he was telling me that just 10 minutes in some of those temps can lead to frostbite and really serious medical conditions. So he's urging folks in the Midwest facing those negative double-digit wind chills to really be careful when they go outside. Limit that cold exposure. Make sure you're protecting your head, your hands, and your feet, especially going forward as these temperatures continue to dip. Hallie.
Yeah, that can get super dangerous. Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much, live for us in New York. So, Bill, let me bring you in here. And we said it right out the gate, right? This is winter, so right now it's cold. It's colder than normal. Yep. It's not like freak out cold. It may get to be that. It may get to be like worst in a couple of years cold, ice, snow later in the week.
It's almost like if it was just this batch and we were talking about this cold air, and then we'd be like, all right, it's not really a news story. Well, let's move on. But because we have a reinforcing shot after this one, and then we have a winter storm, and then we have another reinforcing shot of cold after that, and then maybe another winter storm.
Wait, can I stop you? When you say reinforcing shot, you're saying because the ground's going to be already super cold. It's cold now, so it's going to be cold. Then it's going to get even colder. Then it's going to be snowy and icy, and so that stuff's not going to melt because the ground's so cold. Like, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so like Canada sends it to the cold air. So we have, the first blast is right now sitting here over the Great Lakes. You see the wind chills, and you see up here around, the bay. This area is, negative 20, negative 30. This is going to rotate through, but then there's another one behind it that's going to come in. So that's what I mean, like a reinforcing shot of cold air, because these polar air masses, they do eventually moderate and warm up. But if they get reinforced with another batch, that's how we keep in a really prolonged cold weather pattern. And that's this is for tonight and tomorrow. So this is not going to be fun, but
it's doable. Tomorrow morning, 6 in Columbus, 8 Erie, wind chills -10, -6. D.C., right around 19 degrees. Cold, but that's not the biggest problem. So the next batch of cold air comes down Thursday, but at the same time, all of a sudden, some moisture from the southern stream starts to come up here and meet that cold air. This is where the problems begin on Friday. Saturday, the blue is the snow. The pink is the freezing rain. Some of our long-range computer models are thinking that we could have a large area with a ½ inch to an inch of freezing rain throughout the southern half of the country. That would be paralyzing. That would be power outages. That would cause a lot of issues. Snowstorm on a weekend, even in areas like Memphis, Nashville, Raleigh, Charlotte, D.C., not ideal. A lot of people canceling plans, but it's not going to paralyze those regions as it would if it was during the week. So here's our map showing us where the potential is for the snow. This is where the potential is for the ice. A lot of big cities in here, Dallas included, and Atlanta too. We'll fine-tune this, Hallie, as we go throughout the next couple of days. Again, this starts Friday. It peaks Saturday and Sunday as it moves from the plains all the way to the East Coast.
You will be watching all of it, I know. If there is any silver lining tonight, it's that some of this means that we might have a better shot at seeing northern lights, even in places that don't typically see them.
If it's cold, typically it's clear, and a lot of people are going to have clear skies. And the images coming out of the UK, also from Europe, are incredible with the northern lights. We have what they call a top 10 solar storm that started this afternoon. Now, indications are it may have peaked an hour or two ago. These are the images that you saw when it was just incredible in areas of central northern Europe and the UK. I'm waiting to see what kind of images we start to get, say, now that the sun is down on the East Coast. We should start to see images on social media of the northern lights here. It may not be quite as great as those images you're seeing here, but it's not like a steady thing. It actually fluctuates through the night. So just because it goes down now, in a couple hours, it may peak once again. And so here's that green line. This is the southern extent, almost in the D.C., and this is with the naked eye. If you have your camera, Hallie, you want to point it to the north. Use your camera, take a picture. It'll be 10 times better on your phone than it will be with your own naked eyes. It can be pretty amazing.
That's so interesting. So I guess we'll be out there like this, trying to see if we can see anything tonight.
That's what you have to do. Okay. You drive around to a darkest spot you can find. You start taking pictures. If you don't see anything, sit and wait for a little bit, then do it again. Of course, it's freezing out, so maybe you want to do it out of your car.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you very much. Good advice on all fronts. We'll talk again, I know, later in the week. Let's also talk about some of the political headlines bubbling, because tonight this whole Greenland thing is escalating in a kind of dramatic way. Because President Trump wants Greenland. He wants to own it, or he wants to take it. And in a new phone interview with NBC News, he's not ruling out taking it by force, i.e. using the military. But he also might buy it. He's been saying he's concerned about Arctic security. He thinks Greenland is important for that, so the U.S. needs it for that reason. Russia's moving stuff up around there, China, etc. Okay, so it's security. But also maybe it has to do with the Nobel Peace Prize, maybe? That's what the president's kind of implying in this text to the Norwegians now, saying since they didn't give him the Nobel, he doesn't have to think purely of peace, but for what's good and proper for America. The implication being what's good and proper is, as the president puts it, the U.S. having complete and total control of Greenland. Now, the Europeans are on like a level 10 on this. They are maybe going to unload a trade bazooka, their words, after the president said he'd throw tariffs on some of their countries if they didn't go along with this. And even though President Trump wants Greenland, it doesn't seem like Greenland wants him. That's clear from some of the protests over the last couple of days. And the Greenlandic MAGA message, you see him here, make America go away. That's what they're saying. Let me bring in now our Garrett Hake and our Brian Chung, who are joining us for more on this. And what's so interesting here, Garrett, is when you talk about this, Brian's going to have more on the tariffs in a second. But when you talk about this, the issue of Arctic security seems to be front and center. Put a little asterisk next to that. We're going to come back to that here. But the Europeans and Denmark, the Danes, have said, basically, we're willing to talk to you. We're going to give you, President Trump, what exactly it is that you want. This beefed up security in the Arctic to combat any potential threat from Russia, China, et cetera. So why would the president pay an estimated $700 billion, which is what it's believed to maybe cost to buy Greenland? Why would he pay that? Or why would he use the military for something he could get for free?
Yeah, Hallie, this does seem to be a case of the president not wanting to take yes for an answer. The best reasoning I can give is that perhaps he's trying to negotiate that price down by operating as aggressively as possible here and trying not to take military action off the table. But if that is the case, it's certainly backfiring with the Europeans. And it's not clear that the president will have much of a long leash at all with the people who'd have to make this decision with him, which would be the United States Congress. That money's not lying around in the couch cushions. And Mike Johnson, the Speaker Speaker of the House, who is traveling in Europe right now, didn't seem particularly dialed in or keen on the prospect of more aggressive action in this interview.
I don't foresee military intervention in Greenland. It's a small population of people, and I think diplomatic channels is the way to go.
All of that said, Johnson has not shown much appetite to stop Trump from using military action or to get in his way much at all on these kinds of international issues. Hallie, but the other thing the president needs to keep an eye on is public opinion. The polls on this are relatively new. They're a little bit scattered, but they're all pretty consistent. The idea of taking Greenland by force is overwhelmingly unpopular, and buying it is
even
only
among
slightly
Republicans.
less unpopular. Yeah, that's right, by significant margins. There's not a big rump group of people out here in the United States who are desperate to see this get done.
It's also interesting when you've got like NORAD tonight putting out a tweet saying like, hey, we're going to have some aircraft over there for previously planned exercises. It almost felt like they were saying, don't freak out, like this was long planned. But it's interesting because that speaks to the idea that already the U.S. had been working with partners in Canada, with the Danes, for example, with some of these other Northern European countries to make sure that they had bolstered up security in the Arctic, considering sort of Russia, the potential that China starts to get involved up there, et cetera. It is a geopolitically important strategic area.
Yeah, look, Arctic security is a real thing, and you can't just wish that away by thinking of the fact that wars haven't been fought there in the past. They could very well be fought there in the future because of climate change, which has turned a corner of the globe that was normally locked down in sea ice into a navigable ocean a lot of the time. Russia is a major player there, so too are many of our European partners, so too are the Canadians. Less so the Chinese, although they could be in the future. The Chinese Foreign Ministry, interestingly, put out a statement today, which basically amounted to, don't make us the bad guy here. This is not an issue about us, saying the China threat can't be a pretext here. But thinking about Arctic security will be a job for every future president. And here you see the manner in which this president has chosen to address it.
Garrett Hake, live for us there on the North Lawn. Garrett, thank you. Let me bring in Brian Chung now to talk about the economic piece of it, because there is an economic piece of this. When you've got the president threatening, saying to these European countries, I'm going to tariff you if you don't get behind my push to take Greenland. And these European countries are like, two can play at that game, threatening what they're calling this trade bazooka, right? What does that mean for people's money here in the U.S.? What does that mean in a really practical way?
Yeah, well, it could mean that the many things that we bring in from the European Union will get more expensive. And that's important because the European Union is the largest trade partner for the U.S. when it comes to imports. More so, I think many people will be surprised to find out, than even China. So when you take a look at the countries that are being targeted here, those 8 in front of you, yes, a 10% tariff starting February 1st would make anything coming in from those countries a lot more expensive, but could get even more expensive once you get to the June 1st deadline for that ratcheting up to 25%. And as we know with the experience of the tariffs that the president has unilaterally imposed on so many countries around the world last year, it is American companies that are footing the bill for that. In fact, a recent study from a German institute in the last few days attributed over 90% of those tariff costs being paid by American companies, as opposed to the companies or the countries that are exporting them to the United States, as the president has erroneously explained. But one other important wrinkle to remember here is that you have that bazooka that you were referencing. That is what the European Union would do to American businesses that are trying to export to those European markets. So what would that include? It could include American whiskey. It could include Boeing planes, very important strategic exports that the United States sends to the European Union. It is indeed a negotiating tactic for right now, but we've seen it happen in the past. These tariffs can come into effect. It is the reason why we're watching this Greenland story very closely, Hallie.
That's it. And how the integration with Europe, too. And it's especially interesting given the timing. Brian, I think Davos starts this week, right? The president's going to Davos to have this sort of business conversation at this moment when there's the threat of tariffs, when there's the U.S. seeking to exert a more muscular role in the Western Hemisphere, talk about maybe the president's got his eyes on Canada now, and he talks about Arctic security, et cetera. There's a lot of the business economic component that's threaded into the international politics of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because Davos is happening in Switzerland. Switzerland, interestingly, not one of the countries that are named there. But one really kind of interesting sub-thread to all of this is that it's unclear how the president would tariff specifically 8 countries within the European Union to begin with. And one reason for that is that the European Union sends goods to the United States not under a country of origin that's defined as, let's say, France or Finland. It just says European Union. So it's actually unclear how the president will be able to say, yeah. We're only going to tariff these countries, but not the other ones. So one way to read this is it could be a de facto tariff on all of these countries, or maybe there's a way that you could just route it through Belgium or through Switzerland. A lot of questions about the implementation.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate that. President Trump's making some other news today, too, by inviting onto his new board of peace for the next phase of the Gaza peace talks the Russian leader Vladimir Putin.
Yes, indeed. President Putin also received an invitation through diplomatic channels to join this peace council. We are currently studying all the details of this proposal, including hoping to contact the American side to clarify all the nuances.
This committee is a key part of the U.S. plan to rebuild Gaza. And as you might imagine, there are plenty of nuances, so to speak, involved in that. The president's invited a bunch of other world leaders to join, too, like the Canadian prime minister, the Argentinian president. But if you want to be on the board permanently, there's a catch. You've got to pay $1 billion. We've reached out to both the White House and Israeli government on the Putin piece of it all, but haven't heard back. Let's get to Matt Bradley now for more. This has been a board of peace that has not been without a spotlight and some real scrutiny, too, on what it means for Gaza.
That's right, what it means for Gaza and what it means for the world, because a lot of commentators have been looking at this and saying that this is a really unsubtle attempt by the Trump administration to turn this board of peace into something that would sideline or replace even the United Nations. And, you know, President Trump, of course, has been so critical of the United Nations and so many of the institutions that govern kind of supranationally throughout the world. And this seems like one of those attempts to kind of try to make another body that would fill that role. He has said, in this charter that has been coming out over the weekend of this new board of peace, it doesn't even mention the word Gaza. And it seems to be put in place in order to resolve multiple conflicts throughout the world, as President Trump has claimed that he's been doing ever since he took office nearly a year ago. So this seems like it has much more broad ambitions. As you mentioned, it has kind of a pay-to-play element, $1 billion cost to have a permanent seat on this board. So presumably permanent, meaning more than 3 years, this in the charter of that document. That would mean that that country would be on the board of peace, and would be able to presumably be part of this sort of peacekeeping or diplomatic mission that the board will be playing in conflicts well beyond the Gaza Strip. This whole framework has been really heavily criticized by Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And he rarely would issue kind of a public a tap against President Trump, and that's exactly what he did, saying that he hadn't been consulted. His big objection was that one of the committees underneath this board of peace would include Turkey and Qatar, countries that the Israeli leadership here, especially on the right wing, have regularly said are either supportive or sympathetic to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So the people that I've been talking to about this plan that we've been hearing over the past couple of days, they're not optimistic that it's going to come together, mostly because nobody is going to want to join.
So can I ask you, too, because there's another interesting dynamic at play here. By the president extending this, I don't know, olive branch, you could call it, to Vladimir Putin to come and join this board of peace, let's remind folks that Putin is involved, obviously led the invasion of Ukraine, and there is a stalled negotiation, shaky negotiations on that front. What message does that send to that region then?
That's right. And, you know, one of the things about that is that, of course, this is just one of so many messages that President Trump has sent, not just to Ukraine, but to Ukraine's European allies, who are crucial stakeholders in all of the talks that are going on to resolve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It just goes to show it's a wink, once again, at President Putin, showing that as far as the White House is concerned and Trump is concerned, he is completely rehabilitated despite invading Ukraine nearly 4 years ago. So, you know, this is not the way that you treat a pariah state, as the Biden administration and European leaders have treated Vladimir Putin, inviting him to sit on a board of peace, even as he executes a war that has been widely condemned by governments throughout the world.
Matt Bradley, live for us overseas tonight. Matt, thank you. Let's take you overseas now, because tonight officials in Spain say the number of people who were killed in a horrific high-speed train crash is probably going to go up. It's about 40 believed to be dead right now and expected to increase as there are questions about how this could have happened. You're seeing the scene from moments after the crash last night. People running from one of the train cars that's been flipped on its side, basically. Dozens of other people were hurt in one of the worst train crashes Spain has seen in more than a decade. Officials are just now getting out there to start cleaning up some of the wreckage here, but obviously this investigation is going to take quite a while. We know, according to officials, that the tail end of one of the trains basically derailed, and then the train slammed head-on into a different train heading towards another city. All of this, obviously, as people in Spain want answers. I want to bring in Raf Sanchez, who's joining us now. If I understand correctly, it was a straightaway. This is high-speed rail that's operated for a while in Spain. There was nothing that felt or seemed unusual before the crash happened, right?
Yeah, Hallie, the Spanish transport minister is saying it is extremely strange that this accident happened where it did. As you said, this was a straight part of the track. First question you normally ask in a train accident like this is, was the train going quickly around a curve? That is not what happened here. The track had been renovated pretty recently. The train itself was pretty new. It was only 4 years old. And so a lot of questions right now about what exactly went wrong here that led to just this total catastrophe at 7:45 p.m. last night. The first train going from Malaga to the Spanish capital, Madrid. People at the end of the weekend, a lot of them going home. Train was full, some 300 people on board, when all of a sudden it jumped the rails and you had this collision. I want to play you just a little bit of sound from a woman who survived but saw some truly horrific things. Take a listen.
Some people were fine and others were really bad. And we had them in front of us, and you could see them dying, and you could do nothing. People who were all right broke the windows and pulled me out because I was covered in blood.
Now, you have wounded people in emergency rooms all across the Cordoba region, some 20 people still in serious condition. That includes a number of children. And as you said, Hallie, there are concerns from Spanish authorities that this death toll, currently at 40, could rise higher. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez reporting for us tonight on that terrible crash. Raf, thank you very much. Coming up here on the show, some new warnings tonight in Australia after the third shark attack in just 24 hours there. What experts say could have created the perfect storm. Plus, is your new favorite singer actually AI? We'll explain. Coming up, what's hitting a 70-something-year low in China? But first, have you heard about this new artist? She's been climbing the charts right now. Listen to this. Sienna Rose. This may be dropping into your algorithm, into your Spotify, whatever already. She calls herself a neo-soul singer. She only recently started putting out music, like within the last year, but she already has 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And a couple of her latest songs are up there in the global top 50, the viral 50 chart. She's getting a ton of attention, but then there are these questions because people are like, well, wait a second, where is she touring? Where is she performing? Nobody appears to have ever seen her in real life. She doesn't have any verified social media profiles. She doesn't have an official YouTube page. The streaming platform Deezer is now labeling most of her stuff AI. But on TikTok, one account claiming to be her says that's not the case.
Well, I feel real.
NBC News has reached out to those affiliated with the artist, but we haven't yet heard back. Chloe Malas is following this story for us, and this is one that's like kind of mysterious here. Like she hit it, right? I mean, she had a couple of the songs there on the top 50 charts. I personally know somebody who's like sending her songs to their friends, being like, hey, she's, love this music. But the question is, like, is this even a real artist? Does that matter? And how do people feel about it?
Okay, so there's so much to unpack here, and your friend Hallie is not the only one. Selena Gomez, the queen herself, posted a since-deleted Instagram post of herself getting ready. I believe it was a story to one of Sienna Rose's songs. And now that some people are wondering, how is this artist putting out so much music with no social media presence? How is this happening for her and not other artists? Now that people think it might be AI, they're not happy about it. Take a listen.
Just found out that my favorite artist is an AI.
Nothing is real. It's all a lie.
I thought the songs were really good, but I'm more upset by the fact that I could not detect it.
All right, so Deezer, like you said, which is a music streaming platform, Hallie, they put out the findings of a poll that they did in the fall. They spoke to 9,000 participants across 8 countries, including the United States, Britain, and France. What did they find? 97% of listeners, they can't tell the difference between AI and human-composed songs. I gotta admit, I went on Spotify today. I was listening to some of Sienna's hits. I can't tell the difference either. I would be totally duped too, Hallie.
But this is it feels just like such an of the moment, like, conflict or controversy when it comes to tech, when it comes to music, when it comes to the broader conversation around artists and AI, entertainment companies and AI. And you look at Spotify, last year 80 musicians in Chicago wrote an open letter that said we're pulling our music off of Spotify because of how you handle AI, right? So like step back and give us the macro look at this about the way, and you've done so much reporting on this, Chloe, the way that everybody from Hollywood to musicians and beyond are like grappling with this new AI landscape that we're all in.
First of all, the technology, Hallie, is moving at the speed of light, maybe even faster. And so all of these streaming platforms, they're having to play catch up, including Spotify, which came out and said, look, AI is not allowed on our platform, but what you need to do is you need to disclose it. And that they also said that they are going to improve their enforcement of impersonation violations. And that's a big thing. As long as you are saying that you used AI or you are a company creating an AI artist or band, that makes it better. And I just want to also pull up a graphic of the rise in the popularity of AI artists. You have Child Pets galore. You have Juno Sky, Breaking Rust. You and I might not know this music, Hallie, but actually it's thanks to TikTok. It's thanks to YouTube why these AI artists are gaining millions of monthly listeners and even topping the charts. And I'm sure my kids know a lot of these songs better than you and I. And again, it's all thanks to how AI, it's having such a boom right now. And it's not just music, it's TV, movies as well. Everybody's grappling with it. Yep.
Bottom line, though, the mystery persists over Sienna Rose, right? Can't definitively say either way, apparently.
Who is Sienna Rose? We still don't know.
Okay.
Maybe 2026 will be the year, Hallie, that we'll find out.
Chloe Malas, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, have you heard about this? Valentino has died, the incredibly famous Italian fashion designer at 93 years old. He designed for generations of royals, first ladies, and movie stars, even introduced a new color, Valentino Red, to the fashion world. The foundation of Valentino Garavani says he was at home in Rome, surrounded by loved ones. He's being remembered by so many tonight. Number 2, Australian officials say a 12-year-old boy is now in the fight of his life after a shark bit him in Sydney in what was the 3rd shark attack in just about 24 hours. Somebody else is also in critical condition after being bit while surfing. Police say there's been a lot of rain recently, so the city's harbor has filled with more fresh water than usual, and that apparently is something that attracts bull sharks. Number 3, police say they're looking for a suspected attacker after an Indiana judge and his wife were shot at their home. Both of them are in stable condition, but the Chief Justice there is now warning other state judges to stay vigilant. We're going to keep an eye on this story. Number 4, China's population is dropping now, falling for a 4th straight year, with the country's birth rate now at its lowest level in decades, according to the official data. And the government there has been doing stuff to try to reverse the trend. They're offering like child care subsidies. They're saying, you know, we'll tax contraceptive drugs, we'll tax condoms, etc., in order to try to reverse that trend. Number 5, have you heard about this? The Buffalo Bills firing their head coach today, Sean McDermott, after 9 seasons with the team. Listen, the Bills had some success, right? Regular season, some playoff success. They never made a Super Bowl. The Bills owner praised McDermott, but said a new leadership structure is needed to take the team to the next level. When we come back, some new video showing a pretty bold smash and grab in Jersey. Where do you see it and how much one jewelry owner says he thinks he lost? Plus, where the measles outbreak in South Carolina is now spreading. Next. So a new case of measles has now been confirmed on campus at Clemson in South Carolina. And you know, South Carolina has been the epicenter of this most recent outbreak here. Just one part of it. It's now got something like 550 cases in that state. It is the worst in the country right now. Nationally, the CDC is reporting more than 170 new measles cases in just the first few weeks of 2026. This is one of those things that you're like watching. Liz Kreutz is watching it, our reporter who's been all over this measles outbreak. It's on a college campus, Liz, where there's obviously a lot of people in a small place. Most of them are vaccinated, so that's the good news for Clemson. But it does speak to this moment in South Carolina and how seriously officials are taking this.
Yeah, Hallie, I mean, like you said, this is the largest outbreak right now in the country. Not only are there about 500 cases reported there, they've doubled in the past week, those numbers, and there's about 500 people in quarantine, and officials believe that those numbers are actually an undercount. As far as Clemson, they have not actually given the details on who this person is that's tested positive for measles, but they did put out this statement saying that that person is now in quarantine. They've been isolated, and the university is now doing contact tracing to try to figure out where that person was. And as you said, the good news is 98% of that campus has immunization for measles.
We've been reporting on how a lot of these cases are among unvaccinated people, but not everybody can get vaccinated, and those are among the most vulnerable. And I know you talk with somebody who's dealing with just this.
Yeah, I spoke with a mother whose 6-year-old son, Mason, they're in South Carolina. He is not able to get the vaccine because of an autoimmune disorder. The rest of his family has it. He doesn't. He is currently in the middle of his second quarantine because now twice he has been exposed at school. These quarantines last 21 days. He's missing a lot of school because of it. Take a listen to what the mother had to say.
I'm absolutely terrified that he will get the measles because I do not know what it will do to him. If a virus like the flu makes him that sick, the fact that there's people in the community that just on principle won't vaccinate their children because they just feel like the government can't tell them what to do, it makes me really angry.
Now, the epicenter, Hallie, is Spartanburg County, which is in the northwest part of the state. And experts were telling us some of the schools there have immunization rates at just 30 to 35%. And most of the cases right now in South Carolina are among children and teenagers.
Oh, it's just scary to think about. Liz Koritz, thanks for being on top of it. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, Prince Harry back in court today for what sounds like his last showdown against the UK tabloids. What he says made him paranoid beyond belief. Next. Prince Harry back in a London court today, saying that the British tabloids made him paranoid beyond belief. His lawyers say the Daily Mail publishers used illegal methods to snoop on Harry and then used that stuff to create sensational headlines. Now, the Daily Mail denies it. Prince Harry is expected to take the stand later on this week. Our Danielle Hamamjian has more outside that court in London.
Prince Harry has already successfully sued other publishers. Now he's back in the UK inside that building for one more fight against the British tabloids. And a spokesperson for the prince tells us he feels confident and ready. The fifth in line to the throne isn't fighting this one on his own. Among the other celebrity claimants, actress Elizabeth Hurley and singer Elton John and his husband, David Furnish. They're taking on the publisher of the Daily Mail, Associated Newspapers. Among the accusations that A&L hacked phones, hired private investigators to secretly place listening devices inside people's cars and homes, and impersonated individuals to obtain medical information. All over a period dating back up to 30 years. The publisher denies the allegations, describing them as preposterous smears. Now, back in 2023, Prince Harry became the first senior British royal in more than a century to give evidence in court. Now he'll be back in the witness box this coming Thursday. The trial is expected to last 9 weeks.
Thanks to Danielle Hamamjian for that. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our northern bureau, take a look at this. A group of thieves smashing the front window of a jewelry store in New Jersey. Look at that. The owner says he lost his whole inventory. Everything, about $1 million worth of stuff in like a matter of minutes. Police are still looking for these folks. Out of our southern bureau, new pictures out of Florida showing the Coast Guard rescuing a couple of boaters after their boat capsized. You can see them out there just floating in the ocean. Fortunately, they're doing okay now. Officials say it is a reminder to bring emergency equipment, life jackets, radios, whenever you're out on the water. And out of our Washington bureau here, Maryland could be getting its own sphere. You know, the one in Las Vegas might be coming to the National Harbor. You see the rendering. Officials say it'll be a smaller version, right? So not quite as big as the one in Vegas, but it could bring in millions of dollars and thousands of jobs to that area. Still to come, we are just hours away from the biggest game in college football and a game that has a lot of firsts. Our Jesse Kirsch is there. Jesse?
Hey, Hallie, I got to tell you, if they're handing out bald caps and aviators in Miami, that can mean only one thing. Mr. 305 himself performing outside of the college football playoffs national championship. We're previewing the big game. Woo, Dolly! Coming up after this.
So in just a few hours tonight, I probably don't have to tell you the college football championship is going to kick off, and it's kind of a one of one in the history of college football. Why? Well, you have Indiana, who until a couple years ago had lost more games than any college football team ever, trying to cap an undefeated season where they've just like rolled over basically everyone. They're playing Miami, in Miami's home stadium. The first time that has happened since the college football playoff started. Do you think there's a few tailgaters out there? Guys, there's a few tailgaters out there, okay? And the interest? Through the roof. The cheapest tickets, $3 or $4 grand. Okay, it's a lot of money. And if you're not coughing up that kind of cash, you can watch it on ESPN, which has something like 10 different telecasts of the game. Why? Because football is big business. Look at our favorite graphic, the top 100 most watched TV broadcasts of 2025. Why are people watching live TV? Why are they watching? Because of football. And if it's not the NFL, it is college football. You can see it there, some of those graphics. It turns out it's more college football on this list, right, making the top 100 this past year than any other year that we've been looking at this. Jesse Kirsch has the assignment of the evening, joining us now from the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where this is all going to go down. You are still wearing the Pitbull sunglasses, I see, although not the bald cap. I guess you can be forgiven. Duh. Everybody's excited. It's big business. It's a big scene.
Yeah, and Hallie, when you talk about the tailgaters, Mr. 305 himself is among them. He was just chugging something on the stage a moment ago. I'm not quite sure what. Let's just take you in to give you a sense of the scene. Now, reminder, we are in the Miami area right now, so this is where you would think the Hurricanes unofficially have a home game. But I got to tell you, there's quite a bit of Indiana Crimson out here right now. You talk about what they're trying to do, cap off an undefeated season. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes trying to win a championship for the first time in over 20 years. And you can just see this is just a sliver of the crowd outside right now before the kickoff, Hallie.
And it's so interesting when you look at both Miami and Indiana with those South Florida ties. Some Hoosiers players graduated from one of the local high schools there. And I think it's an interesting mix, right? To your point, typically it would be a super definitive kind of home game, you would think, for Miami. Not the case.
No, there is. We're not home teaming for anybody right now, but definitely there are people out here trying to get us to pick a side. And there are some people in the Miami area who cannot pick a side, including at Columbus High School in Miami itself. That is where Fernando Mendoza, the star quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner for Indiana, went, as did his younger brother and backup quarterback. But there are 3 Miami Hurricanes who went there as well. We caught up with their high school coach late last week. Here's what he told us. And by the way, he can't even pick a side.
Are you leaning one way or the other? I'm really not. It's even my daughter tried to get an answer out of me, and I wouldn't give her one.
So he can't pick a side. There are some students who could pick a side, but there are definitely some students who are rooting for Miami, some rooting for Indiana, and there's a lot of bold out here right now. But I got to say, for the visiting Hoosiers, they're represented very well. We'll see who does better on the field tonight. Kickoff in under 2 hours now. A lot of energy here, and as you mentioned, this is a high-price ticket to get in tonight, Hallie.
I know your crew is like, wrap it up, let's go. Is this your last live shot? Do you get to watch from inside?
We got one more. It should wrap before kickoff. You know, look, if we see one play, that's like if you divide by the ticket price to get in. Even just seeing one play would be amazing in this one.
You earned it. You put on that bald cap and you've double earned it. Jesse Kirsch, text us a pic. Appreciate you. Thank you. This hour, we've got more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.